almost
Times
700 lasers in one device. That's impressive. What you already mentioned at the beginning, a couple of years ago, that would have been impossible due to the high cost of laser technology. But nowadays it's possible to create such a device with almost 700 laser diodes. So you can all imagine how powerful this device is when it comes to penetration into the brain tissue. Yeah, hi and welcome to the second episode of the new Light Medicine podcast. So today we are looking into the field of transcranial photobiomodulation or low-level laser therapy, with a main focus today on new technological developments for treating neurodegenerative conditions like dementia or Parkinson's, but also mental issues like depression, anxiety, or burnout. So we are basically looking at regenerating the brain by making use of the regenerative potential of photobiomodulation. So today's episode will be a bit more technical oriented, I would say, especially now that there are so many PBM or LLLT devices on the market. It is really important to understand the differences and the most important features to really bring light deep into the tissue. And when we talk about the brain, especially to pass through hair and also bone tissue. So we are very happy to have Eric Djie as our guest today. He's a fantastic and very innovative product designer who already won several awards for his work. I think we met about 6 or 7 years ago when we started to develop new home use devices. And at that time, he became our leading product developer for the new Endolight tool for systemic photobiomodulation of the blood, which is basically a very powerful product. And it is now already used by thousands of patients and physicians worldwide. Yeah, and today he's also basically the brain behind our new Weber brain device, which we are just about to launch in the next couple of weeks. And so I'm very glad to have him here on the podcast today and to discuss the development of the devices with him. So Eric, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how the interest in developing medical devices start?
First, thanks for inviting me to participate on this podcast. I've been following the podcast for some time with interest. Indeed, we started working together like 7 years ago, and my background is actually in medicine. So I have a bachelor in medicine. That's how I started off a long time ago. Too long time, let's say 14 years ago. And afterwards, I made the switch to product development. So I have many years in product development all the way to manufacturing and a wide variety of products, wide variety. But at some point it funneled down back to my old field, medicine, health, which is a very meaningful field to be operating in. And the difference that you can make using the same tools that I've mastered over decades is fantastic. So actually, your project and first engagements with you motivated me to focus purely on medical and wellness. So that's now 7 years ago.
Yeah, okay. And our first common development has been the Endolight device, which I already mentioned. So that's like a wearable device which you wear on the inside of your wrist to bring laser light deep into the bloodstream by passing into the arteries. So I think you did a great job with putting those 8 high-power laser diodes into a wristband and to really make systemic laser light therapy possible for home use. I remember it was quite a challenging time back in 2020 when we started this project with the COVID pandemic all over the world. So maybe you can share a little bit about the development process of this very first project we did together.
Actually, it was a little earlier, but it was definitely carried over during COVID. And the interesting thing was that we did, of course, everything remote, like everybody in the world. And even you're in Germany, I'm in Holland. We still have to work remote. It's difficult at that time to see each other. Part of my work brings me often to Asia, purely because there is a little development going on there as well. This product was actually the first LLLT light therapy project that I ever worked on. So I learned a lot from you and the project itself. I learned how much let's say, my medical background can add to a project. So at that time, we were looking at combining, as you said, 8 powerful lasers in a small device. You had to deal with all kind of issues like heat. You have to take care of safety issues and ergonomics, because you're looking at the user interface that has to be easy to understand. And I think there were some challenges along the way, but in the end, we were able to get it to market in a good way. We won actually a Red Dot Award with this design, which we're all very proud of, the whole team. And so it was a good starting point for our corporation, I would say. Got to know each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the Endolight, as I already mentioned, it's now a very commonly used product all over the world. A lot of doctors are basically prescribing it to the patients for continuing their protocols at home. Right now there's a big hype on longevity and biohacking protocols. So yeah, it's a very nice product for everybody who wants to invest a little bit into his own health, into and yeah, as there is this hype right now, there are, of course, plenty of such wearable devices now hitting the market, especially, as you know, from China, a lot of so-called laser watches, which you can get, online. But from your point of view, from a technological point of view, where do you see the main benefits or differences when we talk about the Endolight compared to those cheaper devices?
First, we optimize the output power, right? So we spend a lot of time analyzing actually what's going on. So there are 2 main systems, arteries and veins running through your wrist. And you have to be able to hit them quite correctly, because basically you want to hit the bloodstream that rushes underneath these laser modules. And basically what we're doing is energizing the red blood cells, right? The mitochondria in those red blood cells. So if you're not on the right spot, it will be very hard. You're basically shining light on your skin, but it doesn't do much. So the ergonomics and to make sure that that the fit is correct on your wrist is kind of essential. And then optimizing the output power is not necessarily an easy thing, because it automatically means that these diodes generate a lot of heat, and heat has to be dissipated through the device. The device cannot get too hot, because that's not safe. The skin contact cannot get too hot either. And then it's all a balance also of battery life. And we're still that's a major thing. So if you optimize the output power, but the battery life is meaningless, then it becomes a problem. So this is all fine tuning, having a good architecture of the product initially, and then fine tuning it so that you actually can maximize the different parameters.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, as I already said, I think you made a fantastic job. We are getting amazing feedback from doctors, from patients from all over the world. This is not the topic today, but this will be covered in one of the next podcast episodes for sure, where we will have some patients who are using the technology, some doctors who are recommending it, so they can share a little bit more about the clinical insights. Yeah, but as we are mainly focusing to talk about technology today, let's jump to the new brain device development. I think that's what everybody is looking for or waiting for right now. We see tremendous potential with this protocols, with the new devices, especially as we are already working with transcranial laser applications or LED applications with the older helmet type devices for quite a while. We already see good clinical response from patients. Yeah, but on the other hand, we always knew there are many things to improve. And this is actually why we started this second project with you to develop a superior helmet type device with better light delivery deep into the tissue. So yeah, from your perspective, maybe you can talk a little bit about the comparison or the advantages of the new development compared to the older model or compared to the other helmet type devices which are on the market.
So it's an interesting question. The first question that you came with over 2.5 years ago, right? We started a long time ago. This has been a very, very long development process, and we're very close to production now, very close. But first questions were around, okay, we have the current Weber helmet. We have good results. But there are a couple of issues with the device. For instance, it's a fixed size. So people with a smaller head or bigger head, it doesn't matter. It's very loose, or you have to use all kind of adapters to make it fit. The other thing is, what you mentioned, is that because of the number of LED diodes that you have, it generates a lot of heat, and cover basically prevents it from dissipating. So we listened well. And then additionally, we found out in our research that hair actually blocks a lot of the light. So that became one of the points of attention for us to have a good look at. So that was roughly the starting point. And as I said, it has been a long project. And I would say the first few months, we actually explored mostly what are the opportunities. Okay, the challenges we knew, but what are also the opportunities for this technology? Because to build something that's had worn, and we were already looking at lasers because we have good contacts with laser diode makers. So we knew that, let's say, prices of lasers become more affordable. Before it was completely out of reach, and you would automatically have to go to LEDs. But currently, the laser modules are actually dropping in price, and the difference is not immense anymore. But the advantage of a laser, especially for the treatment of brain, are tremendous. Because what you're looking at, and interrupt me when I'm going too far off in one direction, but what you're looking at is penetration of the skull first. First, you have to pass the hair, but then you have to pass the skull, and certain wavelengths can do this, specifically near infrared. And that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you never reach brain tissue. So laser specifically, because of the focused beam of laser, has a great advantage over LED, which spreads out very wide. So when you hit the skin with LED, you just hit it with a small percentage where you actually want to hit it. And laser is much more focused. So after, I think it was 3-4 months, I mean, regularly we came together, because this has really been a team effort of your team in Germany and us working from different places, basically. We come together regularly and update each other of new insights and new ideas. And then after, I think it was 4 months, we sort of started to funnel it to something that became, okay, we can go in this direction. Also regarding user interface and basically how you could control these large number of diodes. At this moment, we didn't specify it, how many it could be, but we already had an idea it was going to be a large number of diodes. What can you do with this? So, okay, you can turn the whole thing on and off. That's one thing. But we know that different brain regions have different functions. They react different to light. There's a lot of theories out there, and different people want to experiment with this. So then we basically landed on the idea, okay, let's make this product not just a physical product with diodes and all kind of advantages over the current system, but also make it suitable for people that have different theories, have different insights about laser therapy, so that they can optimize their application with the product according to their insights. So that's basically, let's say, after 4 or 5 months, the starting point that we really started to go into the more design phase after deciding together, again as a team, because it's really an effort that we've been engaged in very closely together.
Yeah. So in summary, I think, the main advantage is first of all, what you already mentioned is that you can really make it fit to the different head circumferences now, which is making, of course, a huge difference. And then you were already talking about the issue of hair blocking most of the light. That's, of course, a very important factor. And maybe you can explain a little bit how we are overcoming this issue with the hair now.
So let me go a little bit deeper into the design. I mean, we don't have to go through the whole process, but more focus on the results. So basically, we have a system, and I have all kind of prototypes behind me that show different stages of the development. If you're interested, I can highlight that, but I will take nearly finished prototype. And then what you can see is basically that we have modules in here. And we call these modules hexes because they are hex-shaped. A hex shape is really suitable for creating, let's say, a spheric shape. And each hex shape, and I have smaller versions, let's say here, like this. Each hex shape has six diode positions. This is a PCB that goes inside. So each diode position generates a light, obviously. Then there is a lens system on top of this. Basically, these are the lens holders. I can show the lenses later, but it's not really relevant. But basically, and on top of this, you have what we call light fingers. So I can show that here. And these light fingers are shaped in such a way that you can basically use them like a brush, right? So you can place them on your head, and if you wiggle it, it will, like a finger of a brush, it will get close to your scalp. And that's the whole objective. So we want to get close with these light fingers to the scalp so that the light is not blocked by the hair. It's a quite simple concept, but the execution of the concept had big consequences. Because now what we're talking about is a structure that you have to be able to use on, as you said, people with a large head, small head, different shapes of and then you have to have this like spheric shape where the light fingers had to get very close to your scalp. So that took us a good number of months to actually get to a workable concept. I remember very well that after, I think it was at least 7 months, that we came together again, and we had a mechanical concept. You put it on your head and you test it, and there was automatically a smile on your face because you understood that actually the goal was within reach. But it was a mechanical concept at this point. And going from a mechanical concept to actually fit in the electronics is quite another thing. That's sort of the explanation why things take a long time. Because then you have to optimize, you have to test, you have to optimize and test. These things have to be not just work, but they have to be sturdy enough so that people can use it for a long time. It's not going to be it's not a cheap device, and it's because of its complexity, it has some fragility. So we have to optimize this so that it can be durable. So we did a lot of testing and optimizing both on the electronics and the mechanicals to get where we are now. So that's roughly it. I can show some. I have some parts that basically give the structure, because the base structure is let's say this frame that has three semicircular springs. I can show this because it's patent pending, so we feel comfortable to show this. Of course, there's a lot of details in there that I won't discuss, but that are relevant. But basically, this is the framework on which we hang what we call the hex groups. And ultimately, everything is springy so that it can accommodate what I said, the different shapes. It can accommodate different sizes because you can see everything slides open, it hinges, etc. And that's necessary to make this fit really well. So here, this is the same structure, but then with plastic housings around it. So there's electronics in each of these housings here on the top, here as well, and the front and the back. So there's cabling going through all these elements so that everything comes together to this side where a big USB cable, but a specialized USB cable comes in and goes to what we call a wireless device controller that talks to app on your phone or to a remote control that you can use as well.
Yeah,
in a nutshell.
I think this mechanical structure is already amazing because it's overcoming so many issues we had before. Like what you mentioned, that you can really cover the whole head with all those different laser diodes, and you directly have them directly sitting on the skull, and not like before where you have a couple of lasers directly maybe on the skull, but then with a bigger distance to the skin or to the skull, and therefore you don't have good penetration in those areas. So yeah, with the mechanical fitting and then also those light fingers to go beneath the hair, I think we are already getting a significantly higher amount of light photons deep into the tissue. And this is, of course, pretty amazing. Already this step is amazing. But then, of course, we also have the difference now. We are using real laser technology optimized by a lens system, which you already talked about briefly. So, lasers compared to LED, you already talked a little bit about the better penetration, the better focusing. Yeah, maybe you can also explain a bit about the different wavelengths we are using and about this whole lens system with the different wavelengths.
Yes, so I mean the way that we split up the project is that Weber, of course, Weber Medical, with all its experience in laser, is providing us with the guidance to choose the laser wavelength. We have three types, basically. One is red, 680 nanometer. And then we have near infrared, 808 nanometer, and 1064 nanometer, each with different clinical evidence for efficacy in what you mentioned before. So the team feels very comfortable with that selection because it's grounded in science and evidence, which is important. So the choice for wavelengths comes with its own challenges, because even though first, near infrared you cannot see with the naked eye. Red, obviously you can, but there's additional issues with light of different wavelengths, because as I showed you before, the light finger made of a plastic, transparent plastic, you would say, okay, transparent plastic is transparent, so let's through light. This is true in the visual spectrum, but not necessarily in near infrared. So the choice of material is very, very critical. So the light finger that we have now is made of a material that's both biocompatible, which is of course very important, but also allows for the transmission of all three wavelengths at a very, very high percentage. Typically, plastics like PMMA or PC have a cutoff after around 1,000. So if you would use the wrong material, you basically have a situation where the 1064 becomes close to zero, meaningless. So the choice of material is very, very critical. Furthermore, what I can say is that put a lot of effort in optimizing the light finger itself. Besides the shape, you want to make sure that it's hygienic. And we have several scenarios for that. But one that we are very comfortable about, which it is actually multi scenario, several scenarios that you can use. One of the ways that we recommend cleaning the unit is basically spray an air gun to get rid of loose material, right? But the parts where it actually hits the skin, you could clean this regularly. Now, one way of doing that is basically removing the light finger cap. So we made a little tool to remove this easily, so that the end user can either clean this or, and that's an important part, because every plastic over time has the potential of degradation. There's always UV in the light that has some impact. But the other part of our hygiene scenarios that we developed, Weber UV, which is basically a device that can be used in clinics where you can put the helmet in, and it does in 3 or 4 minutes run, use UV to basically disinfect this area. Now, the good thing is that it's very convenient because you can run it between sessions. The downside is that, let's say, after a month or so, you will have to replace these fingers. That's why we have made it easy to remove, and we are preparing replacement sets so that people can keep their device up and running, especially in clinical situations. At home, you can do this as well, but you don't have to do it that often, maybe once a year or so. So what else can I say? There's a lot of thought in the whole process, setting it up, cleaning it, keeping it good in a clinic. The same disinfection device, the Weber UV, can also be a display, because we have made some attractive light that shows we use LED in the device itself to project light from underneath. So if the unit is inactive, it acts as a display, which is very pleasant for people, for the doctor to show off the device and put some attention on that. So yeah, I mean, you know the product. Maybe some other features that I can explain. A lot of the stuff, of course, of the products is behind the scene, right? Because besides the development and to bring the product to production is a challenge in itself. And then we have to develop all kind of fixtures and tools to put it together. And I've prepared just to show you a little bit of what's going on. And these are, I'm in the engineering department right now, so I grabbed some things from people's desks. But this is just an example of a really small fixture that we use to put the what we call the FBC cable, place the FBC cable on the hex PCB. It's important because it has to be done correctly, and then we fix this plastic part so it stays in place. And then we continue putting it in the total assembly. For that, we also have created a tool that looks like this. So we have several tools of this because we have different groups. And this is a very practical way to actually optimize the production process. It's normal done for any product, but for this product, it's definitely something to put a lot of attention in. So for the last 2 months, we've put a lot of work into that. But besides that, of course, on the electronic side, you have to do similar activity to make sure that all the components on the hex PCB work correctly before you put it all together. Because if you find out too late, then you have to disassemble everything, and the disassembly is a fine process. So you want to make sure that you test in every step, record everything. We're using QR codes to track everything, so we can later go back and see if there's an issue, where the issue exists, so that we can do corrective actions. That's typically the case, but it's definitely the case for this product as well.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, especially for already bringing up one of my next questions was actually aiming at how to sterilize the device, because it's, of course, usually a very common question from clinicians or practitioners who are using the device on different patients. You know, maybe some fatty hair issues, so you really have to make sure it can be sterilized easily. And yeah, I think you already explained it pretty well that we are using this ultraviolet sterilization system, which is very common these days, because we all know that especially UVB, UVC light is really able to kill all different types of pathogens. It's really a great tool for sterilizing without using any fluids or things like that. Or yeah, I think you created a very nice solution for this with putting the helmet into this big UV sterilizer. It looks very nice. It's a very nice display, but yeah, I think it's also very effective for cleaning the device easily before using it on the next patient, right?
Definitely. So there's, I mean, this has been a little bit like playing chess, because you have to think so many steps ahead in different scenarios. And because UV, I mean, UV has an impact on the materials. So we had to make these. First, we had to look at making sure that all the materials in the helmet themselves are UV resistant, especially this one. Because if after some time the transmission rate goes down, then of course your effectiveness of the treatment goes down as well. So having these sets of replacement caps available is very, very. I mean, I think it's a good strategy to keep the product up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and going back to the wavelengths questions, I think it's important to emphasize again, because many people will usually now ask us, which wavelengths are you using? Why are you using those wavelengths? I think it's very important to mention that you have a very special new diode technology now with diodes which can emit up to 3 wavelengths. And we are using this combination now of a red wavelength, I think of 680 nanometers, then the very common 810 nanometer infrared wavelengths, which we were using in all our other devices for many years, of course, backed up by a lot of research. And then what you also already mentioned is the 1064 nanometer infrared wavelength. So yeah, the rationale behind is to reach different layers of the tissue with different cellular effects. Of course, as I already mentioned, all backed up by a lot of science and research. But anyway, we will also talk about the differences of different wavelengths when it comes to penetration, when it comes to cellular effects in one of the next episodes of this podcast, where we go into a little bit more into the science behind this transcranial approach. Yeah, I think it's important to mention the different wavelengths we are using, and I think there is no other device or technology on the market right now which is working with different wavelengths for different penetration, which have all proven to be very successful in clinical outcomes.
The 808, 810 that you mentioned is actually 808. The description is a little bit, there's an overlap. It's just to make sure.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, then for operating the device, you also already mentioned briefly that I think we will have two options: by a relatively simple device controller, or you have the option to use a specially designed app on your phone or tablet where you can basically create your own protocols, target different areas of the brain with different settings, right?
Correct. And of course we have to mention that we have two different versions of the head-borne design, or the system as well. So we have the home version and the pro version. The home version is basically how to explain. Basically, as I mentioned, we have 6 positions on the hex board, 6 diode positions. The difference between the home and the pro is basically that in the case of the pro, each position has 3 wavelengths and basically 3 diodes that burst at 20 milliwatt output power each of them. Each position has basically 60 milliwatt output power divided up in these 3 wavelengths: 680, 808, 1064. In the case of the home, these 6 positions are actually alternated. So you have the opposite sides that have the same wavelength. So we have 680, then we have 808, and then we have 1064. So basically the difference is that the Pro is 3 times as powerful, so to say. Each position has these three diodes, 3 wavelengths bursting at 20 milliwatt each. So basically 60 milliwatt. In the case of the home, we have 20 milliwatt, 20, 20, 20. And then we have alternating 680, 808, and 1064. 680, 808, 1064. So that's the main difference on the device side. On the app side, we have a different way of controlling it. The Pro being definitely a more professional device. It's possible to control different regions on the device that correspond with different regions of the brain. Basically, we separate this prototype is not fully complete, but we basically distinguish the frontal side, let's say the back side, occipital side, the top side, parietal side, and the temporal side. And these sides, these groups, can be separately controlled. They can be controlled for output power and frequency. And this can be done on the level of each wavelength. So doctors can now start very accurately prescribing or composing a certain palette of these 3 wavelengths at different locations and at different output powers and potentially different frequencies even. And it's done through a very nice user interface. We spent a lot of time on this and getting it right. Very proud of this in the end. But it gives a tremendous amount of control so that certain conditions can be treated in a different way. I'm not a clinician. I have my bachelor in medicine, but I don't dare to venture off too far in making statements of therapeutic type. But I've heard people talking about the value of only using the circular area on the brain and not specifically not the parietal area. That could be hugely beneficial. And we offer that control later on, but there's an ongoing development. We will have even a higher level of control, not so much in the app, because the app has a small user interface, but we're looking at creating a console type of setup that gives control on the hex level, on the small level, and potentially also with a timeline so that you can make patterns changeable. So there's different people that are working with light therapy that have different theories that are currently actually not possible to implement. And this device and the user interface enables clinicians, researchers to actually apply these different compositions to test their efficacy.
And just to add, can you tell me how many diodes we have in each version in the Pro compared to the home version? How many laser diodes?
So each hex has 6 positions. In the case of the Pro, each position has 3 diodes. So basically, hex has 6 times 3 is 18 diodes times 20 milliwatt, right? And the whole system, both for the home and the Pro, has 38 hexes. So we're in the around 600, what is it? 684 diodes in the Pro and 228 diodes in the home version.
Yeah, very
And again,
impressive. As you can
times
all
20
imagine,
milliwatt.
almost
Times
700 lasers in one device. That's impressive. What you already mentioned at the beginning a couple of years ago, that would have been impossible due to the high cost of laser technology. But nowadays it's possible to create such a device with almost 700 laser diodes. So you can all imagine how powerful this device is when it comes to penetration into the brain tissue.
And one thing to highlight, because there's a lot of confusion about power in the industry, what we see. But what we're talking about is optical output power, and which is very, very different from electrical power consumption. So a lot of manufacturers are stating electrical as the power of the device. This is not correct, especially in the case of LEDs, because LEDs have a very low efficiency. So maybe 70% of the power is only generating heat. In the case of a laser, is much higher. So even if you start with the same input power, the output power for laser is completely different. Add to that our system for light fingers, where actually the effective output power, optical output power, actually reaches the skull and hence the brain tissue at a much higher rate. You're talking about a factor difference, a high factor difference between, let's say, what LED can do and what laser can.
Right, absolutely agree. Yeah, this is of course also going a little bit into laser physics. Then we could talk about light or power density, of course, which is really determining how deep you can really penetrate by focusing a laser. But yeah, will be a topic of, again, one of the next episodes when we go a little bit more into the science. But I think it was already a pretty good explanation, and people can understand that laser technology is really superior, significantly superior compared to LED technology, and especially here when we really want to penetrate through the skull bone deep into the brain tissue. Yeah, and then also just to summarize what you already mentioned, also our idea or our rationale behind that is creating also a home use version, of course. What we talked about in the beginning when we talk about such neurodegenerative conditions like dementia, Parkinson's, we really believe that it's crucial to have an ongoing treatment protocol. So of course, patients can go to the doctor for the initial treatments with a more powerful device, but for follow-up treatments, for daily use at home, we believe it's really crucial to have a tool which they can use at home for an affordable price. And therefore, we have created such a system where we are offering the Pro and the home use version. So I think that's very important, both for the practitioners and for patients to know. Yeah, so in general, when we come to the end of this episode today, what are your thoughts on future perspectives? How do you rate in general the potential of this device or of this transcranial approach for helping people with severe brain issues? Where do you see the potential?
Well, again, I don't pretend to have any therapeutic knowledge, so I will be conservative in my statement. However, knowing from what I hear and what I read, that light can do, the improvements that we have made compared to any other system are extremely significant. So the fact that we can actually bring light where it needs to be, not on the hair, but for a significant part close to the scalp, that we can bring it focused, which, I mean, by a factor enlarges the impact of the laser light because it can reach the brain. I think that this is a great system. Of course, I've designed it myself and we worked on it ourselves. But really, if I compare it based on those metrics, and of course also what we've heard, because we've already shown it to a lot of people during ISLA events, and the feedback is very, very, very good. So I think we have a really good product for many years to come. Additionally, something that I want to show you, this is just a practical thing, but we put a lot of efforts and attention so that this is also a practical product, right? So with that comes a carry case that protects the product very well. So just want to show you this because it's not an afterthought. Products are fragile, so you need to protect it well. So we have developed this case with features we call as like sleeves that prevents these hex groups that are springy, that it vibrates too much, so that this unit can travel with you wherever you go, so they can use it also on your trips and whenever you. This is a therapy that you want to do daily. So this one is one visually. I mean, it's a practical item that will just enlarge the impact.
Yeah, looks very nice. And I know you're always finding very good and practical solutions. Now this whole project is basically coming to an end soon. I know it's been a lot of work, a lot of tough challenges you met on the way. But, so do you already have some new projects in mind, or what are you focusing now on after this helmet project?
Actually, this project is never coming to an end because we have to besides building the product and making sure that it's manufactured, you have to offer very, very good service. So we're setting up the service system as well together with you, so that if there's any issue, that customers feel comfortable, that they get very quick feedback and get their products well serviced. Of course, on the development side, I think we've been talking about the project that I probably cannot disclose, but maybe yes, maybe no. But still using laser light in an application that might be very practical as well for overall health, I would say, without giving away too much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I think this was a very informative talk today. So first of all, I really want to thank you for your contribution. Do you want to share anything else with our listeners, or some final words, some upcoming events maybe where they can meet you? Maybe you will join us in Las Vegas for the A4M conference. We still need to talk about that, or anything else you want to share?
Well, we are very, very interested to get people feedback, because especially on the app front, it's not static, so we can still optimize things. People, especially doctors, have ideas about how we can optimize it, or as I mentioned, how to implement certain things in the console. We are definitely very much open to have a conversation. Either during one of the events or shows, or just contact us through you. It's probably the easiest. For the rest, yes, our cooperation is very tight. So please don't contact us to say, hey, what you learned from Weber, can you do this for us? No, our cooperation is very tight. We are like very close partners. So consider us part of the Weber team. For other projects, we're always interested to talk.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I think this was a very good point for all of you listening to that. If you're going to use this technology as a patient or as a doctor in your clinic, we are always very happy to receive your feedback, to work on collecting research data together. So please feel free to reach out to us for looking into collaborations or sharing your feedbacks. And so thank you again, Eric. Thank you for everybody out there listening to us. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please feel free to share it with someone who might benefit from that. And the podcast is now live on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple. So please follow us and look out for future episodes where we will also dig a little bit deeper into the research, into clinical protocols, and of course, into different fields of light medicine. Thank you.